Hello, good evening. Oh, it is July 10th, 7 o'clock at night. This is Kelly from Kelly's Coffee and Crime Chat. I have had one busy day of running around, and I just had my dinner, which was Domino's Pizza, and I am drinking not Java Mama. I was going to have my Revenge cold brew today, but since it's later and I'm unwinding, I'm having a carbless. Carbless is a carb bliss, B-L-I-S-S. No carbs, very good. It's 100 calories seltzer water with alcohol in it. To me, it's not very much alcohol, but for me it isn't, I should say, because I do have weight on me, so. But it's very good for seltzer water. I'm drinking the black cherry. Yummy. It is so good. It's got much more fruit flavor in it than just like White Claw and all those. Oh, it's so good. Very refreshing. Because I've been hot and sweating all day at work, running around. Oh, gosh. Okay, so this is my relaxing time. And I wanted to talk about this case. Now, I featured it in my Facebook group, Kelly's Coffee and Crime Chat, which is a private group for my calendar. I've got a page-a-day calendar on true crime. And this was featured, I shared it on there at the end of June. I think it was like June 29th, June. So it's on there. You can actually read about the case on there as well. And that's one of my sources. This is also going to go up as early, now that I finally am on here. It's going to be your early access on Patreon, Spotify Premium, which I normally have it up earlier on Wednesday. And it will drop on Friday on the podcast. So, never heard of this one. It takes place up around Chicago. My other sources are crimetraveler.org and wikipedia.org. And Page a Day Calendar, which is awesome desk calendar for true crime. Okay, this is episode 125, and we're going to talk about the Lipstick Killer. I had no idea why they called him that until I read it in my calendar. The Lipstick Killer is William George Heirens. That's Heirens. He was born November 15th, 1928. He grew up in Lincolnwood. It's a Lincolnwood, sorry. It is a suburb of Chicago. His mom and dad were Margaret and George. So George was his dad's name, and he got his middle name, which I've seen that a lot. It's like kind of like a tradition to give your son the middle name of your father's first name. I've heard that. Now, it is storming over here. I love the sound of thunder, but it's very hard to get grass mowed when it's raining every day from the hurricane. We're getting part of the hurricane from Texas, and we're in Illinois. So it's just very strange that we're getting that, but just the rain. But now they were poor, and they fought so much, his parents, that William had to leave the house and just go anywhere, walk up and down the streets, do anything, get in trouble or whatever he did. He actually started stealing just for fun at age 13. He was arrested for having a loaded gun on him at age 13. Arrested. Police searched his parents' home and found stolen weapons, furs, jewelry, cameras, and other things of value in a storage shed. And I read that the storage shed was on a building that was adjacent to where they lived, because pretty sure they lived in an apartment, I'm thinking. I can't remember if I read that, but there was a lot of apartments that I have read about when I read this case. Another thing about this case, I want you to really pay attention and let me know at the end if you think he's guilty. This was back in the day, before we had laws against police brutality and all. This just really shocked me when I read what happened to this guy. Not that I'm sticking up for him, because I kind of thought he was guilty, and then there's other times where I'm thinking, if he's not guilty, why is he saying this and this? So anyway, just listen and let me know what you think. Now, he confessed to all the burglaries, so he had to go off to a boys' school. And when he was sentenced, then he was sentenced to 3 years for theft at St. Bede, that's Bede Academy, and that's in Peru, Illinois. I didn't know that they sentenced you. It's a private 4-year Catholic school, high school, that prepares kids for college. I didn't realize that people actually got sentenced at those. Let me move my phone over here so I don't want to accidentally hit stop and have to do this over. But anyway, I didn't realize that people got sentenced to a Catholic high school. He was a good student and got into the University of Chicago's special learning program. He was released at age 16 in 1945. That same year, on June 5th, a 43-year-old woman, Josephine Ross, was found in her apartment, stabbed repeatedly. She also had her head wrapped in a dress. Dark hair pieces were in her hand. A guy with dark hair was seen running from her apartment. Later that year, same year, December 10th, another woman, Frances Brown, was found in her apartment with a knife sticking out of her neck, and she had been shot in the head. A message was written in lipstick on the wall, and this is why it's called the Lipstick Killer. I should have a photo of this in my photo dump on Facebook, Patreon, and Instagram, but the message was written in lipstick, and it said, quote, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." That's what was written in lipstick. In both of these cases, nothing had been taken. They found a bloody fingerprint on the entrance door, and someone heard gunshots around 4 a.m. It was on a door jamb. The fingerprint was, and it was a bloody fingerprint that looked like a bloody smudge. Back then, I'm going to get to this, but you'll understand, fingerprints were not as advanced as they are now. The night clerk at this apartment building said there was a guy who left around then, looked to be about 35, 40 years old. He was in a... Oh, wait, that's the next case, sorry. That's how the guy described him, 35 to 40 years old. Now, Chicago police had some theory that the killer was female. I don't really know why. I never did find out. Now, on January 7th, the following month, 1946, a 6-year-old girl from Edgewater, Chicago, Suzanne DeGran, and I don't know how to say the last name. It's Degnan. Degan or Degnan. I'm not sure how to say her last name. Now, Suzanne was missing from her bedroom, and police found a ladder outside her window and a note. The note said, "Get $20,000 ready and wait for my word. Do not notify the FBI or police. Bills are in 5s and 10s. Burn this for her safety." They also kept getting phone calls from a man about needing that ransom. Now, there was a witness who saw a man in a fedora hat, long overcoat. It was like a grayish hat and a dark overcoat. He walked by with a shopping bag by her apartment. I don't even know if this is relevant, but again, he described him as 35 years old, maybe 5'9", and 170 pounds. The mayor also got a letter. When the parents were getting the ransom letters, the Mayor Edward Kelly, it was written, quote, "This is to tell you how sorry I am to not get Ole Degnan," the last name. O-L-E is how it was spelled, Degnan, instead of his girl. Roosevelt and the OPA made their own laws. Why shouldn't I? A lot more, question mark. So that's what the note said. And it was OPA is the Office of Price Administration. And Suzanne's father, the Degnan father, was a senior executive to the OPA. And police thought now that the killer was a meat packer. And there's a reason for this. Because of some guy on the block. Oh no, got to read my handwriting. Because of some guy on the black market, meat business was had been decapitated. Another OPA executive had been threatened as well. His children had been threatened. So, Office of Price Administration, I'm not familiar with this, but here's a trigger warning. So if you don't want to listen to this part, it's an anonymous tip that came in about Suzanne, the little girl. So you don't want to hear this, so you just fast forward a few minutes. Anonymous tip came in, and Suzanne's head was found in a sewer, just a block away from her home. Her right leg was found in a catch basin. Her torso was found in a storm drain. Her left leg in another storm drain. Now, a month later, her arms were found in another sewer. So, blood was present in the drains in the basement laundry room of an apartment near where they lived. Police said Suzanne's body was likely dismembered there and was already dead before the killer did this. Her time of death was determined by the coroner, 12:30 to 1 o'clock a.m. They also thought her killer was someone who knew dissection and anatomy, so a meat cutter is what they were thinking. The job was so clean, and it was done with a very sharp knife. This is what they're speculating from looking at the autopsy of the body. Now, a custodian who was a Belgian immigrant who cannot write English very well worked in their apartment where Suzanne and her family lived. Apartment building. He was arrested. 65-year-old Hector Verburg, Verburgh, wasn't a meat cutter, but had a murder room, quote unquote, murder room, supposedly. I don't know if this was ever proven. This is what the police said. He had a murder room, and they said a dirty hand like a custodian had to be the writer of that note. Really? I don't know why they would think that. Now, they questioned Hector for 48 hours and beat him so bad he was injured. And like I said, this was back before they had laws against this. Police brutality. His lawyer, he was part of a janitor's union, and they were able to get him a lawyer. So he got him released, but not before they hanged him, blindfolded him, handcuffed him behind his back, and pulled him up by bars. He got no food and had to go to the hospital. So he lived, but he had to go to the hospital. They even tried to get his wife to throw him under the bus. Hector was in the hospital for 10 days. He sued the Chicago police for $15,000, and his wife also got $5,000 out of that. I don't know if it was out of that or it was $5,000 more. But they did successfully sue the Chicago Police Department. Another suspect, Sidney Sherman, who had been a discharged Marine. Now this one is another strange suspect. The handkerchief that was suspected as a gag to quiet Suzanne had the word name S. Sherman on it, like it was stamped on it, like in the, what do they call that? Like, in the material. That was on there. That's how they suspected him, Sidney Sherman. When they went to question him, he was gone. He was residing at the YMCA in Hyde Park. He quit his job and never even got his paycheck and took off. He was found in Toledo, Ohio, 4 days later after a manhunt was issued. He claimed the handkerchief was not his, and he left to elope with his girlfriend. The owner of this hanky was Seymour Sherman of New York City. He was not in the United States when Suzanne was killed and had no idea how it got to Chicago. Isn't that something? I thought that was just the strangest story. I don't know how they found out it was Seymour Sherman, but they found out it was him. Phone calls were still coming in at Suzanne's parents, the Degnans. One kid name dropped a teenager named Vincent Costello, saying he killed Suzanne, that he admitted it. They arrested him and gave him a polygraph, and he passed. By April of 1946, about 370 people were questioned and cleared. Here we go. This is very, very interesting and important here if you listen to this story. And I'm going to be kind of going back to talking about this guy, Richard Russell Thomas. He was a nurse, and he was serving. He was in Phoenix, Arizona, in prison for molesting his daughter. He had been in Chicago at the time of Suzanne's murder. They found the handwriting of the notes was close to his. Even his medical training came into it from dissection of Suzanne's body. He had been at a car yard. I never heard that term before. I sounded to me like it was like a place you would leave your car, I'm thinking. Or at first I thought it was a junkyard, but I'm not sure if that's right. He had been at this car yard many times where Suzanne's arms had been recovered. He actually admitted it. He admitted this. He confessed. Later, though, he took it back. The press had already printed news about Richard being Suzanne's killer. But when they found out that he took it back, they didn't print it because this was all overshadowed by another crime. This other crime was burglary and attempted murder on a policeman. The burglar, of course, was shooting, trying to get away. And June 26, 1946, William Heirens, Heirens, lipstick killer, was arrested for attempted burglary. 6 days he was interrogated. And this was the attempted burglar. He was beaten and starved. According to him, he was beaten and starved, could not see his parents for 4 days. Now remember, he's only 17. He's a minor. Miranda rights did not exist then. And he refused a lawyer. They refused him to talk to a lawyer for 6 days. Heirens was given a drug, sodium pentothal. And that is the drug that is the first one they give you of the 3 drugs when you get the lethal injection. It acts as a truth serum. No permission was given. He's a minor. They did not contact his parents so he could get the drug. It was given by 2 psychiatrists. There was no permission given to this kid. There was no warrant to give him this drug. Heirens talked about an alternate personality named George. Now, remember, George was his dad's name and his middle name. This is when he was on that drug. And the alternate personality, George, was the one who committed the murders. They asked what George's last name was. He said he didn't know for sure, but it sounded like a murmur. Police thought it was Merman. Now, if anybody's, I gotta stop here for a minute. I was reading this, and if anybody's ever seen the movie Bad Santa, it's very, very vulgar with, what's his name? Billy Bob Thornton. Thurman Merman was the kid. The kid that he was trying to protect and went to stay in his house. And I just thought of Thurman Merman. But anyway, his last name, the police thought it was Merman. But then the media started going around saying it was Murder Man. This original transcript does not exist anymore, where all this was talked about when he had this drug and was interviewed. It does not exist. It disappeared. A polygraph was given, and they said that the results were inconclusive. Now, he was put in the Cook County Jail and in the actual infirmary because he had to recover. He was given a spinal tap during his 5th day of interrogation. And this was June 7th. I'm so sorry. July 2nd, 1946. When he had the spinal tap, no anesthesia was given. And the reason they gave him the spinal tap, I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I'm like, why are they giving him a spinal tap? They did no anesthesia to see if he was faking his drug-induced state. When they gave him that drug, that truth serum, they wanted to find out if he was faking. So they gave him the spinal tap. Because if he was under that drug, he wouldn't have felt the spinal tap. Basically is what they're saying. He wouldn't have had the feeling of them doing anything. And he did. Now, I'm confused by that. Because that didn't work. Because he talked about an alternate personality under the drug. So, I don't understand that. If he was faking that, why would he even say anything about I don't know. People say he was trying to say this to get insanity defense. I talk about that later too. I'll probably end up mentioning it again. But they searched high and low for this George dude and could not find him. It's an alternate personality. They're not going to find him. Where are they going to find him? Anyway, Heron said he was always taking the heat for George. Burglary and now murder. Police suspected he was saying this on purpose, there we go, to claim insanity. And police claimed Heron's fingerprints matched from that door jamb and ransom note. Now, this was the door jamb that was on Frances Brown's murder. The bloody smudge. Now, the fingerprint also that was on the ransom note. Back then, like I said, it wasn't as advanced. This could also match 65% of the population. So it was not advanced. These fingerprints weren't. And police searched his residence and his college dorm. Now get this. They found a scrapbook of Nazi photos that was stolen from a person called Harry Gold. This burglary occurred the night Suzanne Degnan was murdered, in the same area as Harry Gold. They also found a stolen medical kit. No blood or skin or hair or nothing was found on the tools. And they claimed that the tools were way too small to dissect a body. They also found a gun that had been stolen. Now, a stray bullet came from that gun through a window, wounding a woman. Herons had the gun when that occurred. So, to me, that's like almost attempted murder right there. He was not a good guy. He really wasn't. The witness that saw a man walking toward the Degnan home identified Herons at a hearing. That was the one that said he was 35 years old. First, the one that was, he said he couldn't make out his face. This was the one where he was in the fedora and the hat and he's carrying a shopping bag. He said he could not make out his face that night, the first night that he told them about this guy. But the thing is, how do you know he's 35 years old if you can't make out his face? But anyway, he did claim this time to see his face from headlights because the guy walked by headlights and then he was able to see his face. But he was not able to pick him out of a lineup back when the murder happened either. They presented a plea bargain. If Herons confessed to Josephine Ross, Frances Brown, and Suzanne's murders, all three murders, he would serve one life sentence. Herons and his parents both signed this confession, and it was on July 30th. Now, the state's attorney who offered the plea deal withdrew Herons' 1 life term sentence and made it a 3 life term. He said he would push the death penalty on Herons if he went back to trial over this. They even threatened him with a 4th murder, a woman named Estelle Carey, and I was going to look her up and I forgot. I was so busy today, but I am going to look her up and see what that one's all about. Estelle Carey, and Herons couldn't have even killed her since he was in the boys' school at the time she was murdered. Now, an allocation was done. An allocation is something that allows a criminal to explain why he should get leniency. Basically, get a reduced sentence. As this was done, William Herons answered questions again about the plea deal. And he reenacted the murders. Reenacted them. Then they believed he was the murderer because he talked about how he knew Frances Brown's apartment. Like, you would not know that apartment if you had not been in it before. And he also admitted that he got rid of the knife he used to dismember Suzanne. He got rid of it on subway tracks close to where he killed her. Now, the subway crew was notified about this. And they actually, if you see it, let us know. Because there was some reason they couldn't get a warrant because I can't even remember what it was. There was a reason they could not go look for it themselves. I mean, it's on tracks. So they had the crew that was, that worked on the tracks, and they found it. It belonged to Guy Roderick. Guy Roderick was the same guy who had his gun stolen by William Herons, the one that the stray bullet injured the woman. Guy identified the gun on July 31st. Herons disposed of it there because he said he didn't want his mom to see it. His mom wouldn't see it, so his mom wouldn't see it. So he disposed of the knife there, and it was from the same guy who had his gun stolen. He finally took responsibility for all three murders on August 7th of 1946. He reenacted the Susan Degnam murder in front of the public and the press. On the night of September 4th, he tried to hang himself in his cell, and they found him before he expired. He was sentenced to the 3 life terms. Then he said whoever killed Suzanne is still out there, so he's taken it back again. He then denied responsibility of all the murders. Josephine Ross's daughter doesn't believe he killed her mother because she said everything in her house, in Josephine's house, nothing was missing. If he was a burglar, why didn't he steal anything? And there wasn't a connection between William Heron's and the ransom notes. Lipstick note and ransom note did not match handwriting. So when suspect, now remember Richard Thomas, the one I talked about that was a nurse in Phoenix, Arizona, who was a big suspect, he confessed, the one that confessed and then took it back, his handwriting matched the ransom note. He was released when William Heron's was brought in. He was released well, it's not him. We're getting this 17-year-old kid that's been in trouble before and murdering everybody. Or not murdering, burglarizing everybody. So that's what happened. And Richard Thomas was the nurse that was known to steal surgical supplies because he was a nurse. He was the one that molested his daughter and was serving in an Arizona prison. He died in the Arizona prison in 1974. Heron's family changed their last name to Hill. It was the parents and his brother. They all changed their last name. William Heron's was transferred a few times. His final place, he was in Dixon, Illinois, at the Dixon Correctional Center. He suffered from diabetes, swollen legs, and limited eyesight. And on February 26th of 2012, he was taken to the U of I Medical Center. He lost his battle with diabetes on March 5th of 2012. Complications from diabetes. He was 83 years old. He was in prison for 65 years. And the Degnam family insisted he was guilty. But he maintained his innocence the whole time. He was denied clemency or parole. He was denied parole several times, quite a few times. And he was also denied clemency after a 2002 petition was issued. There was something, I thought I had it written down here. Now, there is a book called Before I Kill More. It was in 1958 by Lucy Freeman. I don't know if it's still in print. Another book was William Heron's His Day in Court by Dolores Kennedy, and that was written in 1991. I did read on here that the lipstick murder handwriting, I think I did say that they didn't match. The lipstick handwriting and the ransom note did not match. So that's another weird thing. I don't understand. They thought that it was whoever did it was by the same person, but they were trying to disguise their handwriting. So, did this 17-year-old guy do this? When you got somebody confessing, he said he was coerced in confessing, but if you're reenacting the murder, that made me second guess it. And then this other guy that was in prison in Phoenix was in Chicago at the time. I'm not even sure if all these were done by the same person. That's another thing. If maybe William killed the 2 older ladies, but then nothing was stolen from their house, and then this other sicko killed that little girl. Because that's kind of, when they say a serial killer, they kind of follow the same pattern. This little girl was totally different. She was missing, first kidnapped, ransom note. That's got me thinking that the little girl was killed by, in my opinion, maybe the guy from Phoenix. And then I think William may have been guilty for the first 2 ladies. I'm not sure, but like I said, nothing was stolen. Richard Thomas was the first one, whose handwriting matched the ransom note. But they just basically threw him to the side when Herons was arrested for burglary. And I think he had been in trouble for so many times in Chicago that they were trying. There was even speculation that they had planted things at the scene, like the some of the thing I can't remember what it was that they were planting. I mean, I don't know how you could plant a fingerprint. You can lie about a fingerprint, and that could have been something they did. But for them to interrogate him the way he did and beat him up, he's a 17-year-old kid, giving him that truth serum. But if he was in so much pain from that spinal tap, not unless he didn't feel the spinal tap when they did it, but once the drug wore off, he was in pain. Because I never did get that. I never did find out how that worked with the spinal tap. Like, they may have given it to him to where, but they think he was faking anyway. So he must have been in pain from the spinal tap because while he was on the drug, because they did think that he was faking it for an insanity defense. And nothing else came out of that at the trial or nothing. Well, they probably didn't want to admit they gave him that drug. And then I found out that the state's attorney paid $1,000. It may have even been more than that for the psychiatrist to give him that drug. He paid the psychiatrist to give him that drug. That came out later. That was the state's attorney, the one that recanted his 1 year life term murder to 3 year, and said he threatened death penalty But I tell you, the laws were so different back then. I'm really glad they have the laws they do now, because if you are innocent, that killer's still out there running around. And it's not right. I don't think it's right to implicate an innocent person. I really don't. Now, if you know for a fact, like there's DNA, or for a fact they did it, then I could see it. But this is just ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying he's not innocent. I'm saying he's probably is guilty of something. But I'm not sure he killed that little girl. The reason why a lot of them didn't think the one lady's Josephine Ross' daughter doesn't believe he did it because he just would not have done it. She said he's 17 years old, and that kid, quote unquote kid, would not have done all of this to stabbed her repeatedly like that when nothing was taken. She does not think he's guilty, but I think she's the only one, because the other people, his family thinks he's guilty, and the Degnan family thinks he's guilty. I never did hear about the Francis Brown case and family, about them thinking he's guilty. But to even try to pin a fourth murder on him, that Estelle Carey, I thought that was ridiculous. It's like, really? You guys can't go out and find who really killed this lady when he was in a boys' school when it happened? This kind of thing really makes me mad. If you think about it, if you're in my Facebook private group, Kelly's Coffee and Crime Chat, go back to about June 29th. I think this case was over 3 days. And I shared it. Oh, the last one, part 5, was on July 4th. He was a small-time teenage burglar. Was he just a small-time teenage burglar or a vicious underage serial killer? And I don't know. I thought he was at the beginning, but now it's like he was the longest-serving prisoner in Illinois state history at the time of his death. And he maintained his innocence during that time, but was repeatedly denied. Okay, yeah, I got that written down. I'm looking at the calendar now. I still have it on July 4th. I haven't changed it. So I have not posted. It's the last thing I posted on there until I post more for this week, because I am a week behind, of course. The Degnan family was the one that submitted victim impact statements urging the parole board to keep Herons incarcerated. So they were the ones that really kept him in there. The ones that mostly kept him, the most. But wow, I'm going to try to upload this tonight so I can get my early access out to you guys, and it will drop on Friday. Have a wonderful week, everybody. And I'm going to do the Patreon 3 crime tales, and you tell me which one is true. I'm going to be doing that probably over the weekend for Patreon and Spotify Premium. I think that'll be a little bit fun to do. So that is on my Patreon, which is always only $5. I never go over that. I have been, let's see, there was something I thought I was going to talk about that I watched. I did get back into Unexpected Killer on Max. And there was something else on Max that I started watching. And of course, I'm blanking now on what it was. Because I got back on an Unexpected Killer, and I cannot remember the other one. I have been listening to Sword and Scale, another podcast. If anybody's not listened to that, that's a good one. That is a good one. It's got ads, but it's a good one. They've got the actual like interrogation interviews from people and the actual things, you know. And they did a story that I just had my mouth drop, and I knew basically what it was, kind of, but I wasn't sure. And it was featured on Snapped. But I can't remember now what season it was. It was featured on Snapped, and it was about this girl who was so stupid. She was so stupid. Oh my gosh. And she's on the 911 call just crying. I'm like, okay, this sounds fake. Sounds fake to me. And I don't like to do that because I never know if it's fake or not. But it's like, this girl really, it was just too much. And she kept sniffling, and it sounded like the sniffling was fake. And I think they did say she never even shed a tear. And now I can't remember the girl's name. It took place in an area that there was snow. And she's like, I'm out in my car. My fiance's inside. And I can't find him. I think he's dead. And I can't remember what all she said. I don't remember what all she said on the 911 call because it was getting on my nerves. But anyway, I'll try. If I think of that Snapped episode and can find it again, because I watched it on my phone while I was crafting, I'll share it to, I want to say Wisconsin. It was here in the Midwest. That's why I'm like, I don't think I've ever heard of this. I think it was in the Midwest. I don't know anymore. I have a hard time remembering all these cases I watch. But if I think about that, the one I was watching on Max, and it was fairly new. Shoot, I'll put it in the comments or something. I just can't think of it. I do this all the time. It was very good though. I'll post it on my Instagram and Facebook for people to see. And I will put all the information in the show notes, all of my, my email, everything. So you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, X, which used to be Twitter. Or email. And that's all for today, everybody. I am still enjoying my Java Mama. And I'm going to have my revenge iced coffee again sometime soon here. I just wanted to unwind with my carbless, which is 100 calories and no carbs. It's black cherry, so good. But have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe and keep cool. Stay cool. Be safe if you're in the path of the hurricane. The one thing about the rain I like is it does cool off a little bit, but I am a hot mess anymore with sweating. So have a good one, everybody. And I will see you next time.